Now, this is a presentation on project management. You can think of it almost as a workshop. In other words, the speaker will not only explain his understanding of project management and the career issues which are related to it, but will also take your questions as to how you may want to prepare yourself to take the certification exam and subsequently to become a PMP, which is a project management professional. Now, speaking about the speaker, you have seen the flyer. His name is Mr. John Worf. He is the president of a consulting firm named JPW Consulting. It's an international global consulting firm. Please go to his company website, which is jpw.com. You will be very interested to see many of the things what his company does, all of them dealing with project management. They deal with project management and change management. This is the new aspect of project management. Change management goes beyond just scheduling and monitoring projects or to assuring the resource allocation aspect of it, to really bringing the change in the organization, change which will endure, a competition and subsequently lead to successful project outcome. Now, I don't want to take too much time to speak for his presentation, but I will tell you a little bit about himself. He is an executive student, graduate, actually alumni, and he graduated back in 2008, 2007, 8, and graduated from a very, a strong cohort. That group of students have done extremely well for themselves. Many of them ended up to be, a good president of companies. In fact, several months ago, we brought one of them here as an alumni, very successful alumni of NJIT, to give her an award. John was just telling what she was actually part of his cohort, and he was saying what he was pretty jealous of her because her company is making more money than his company is. So he was saying her company grows around $10 million more, so he's working hard to catch up, which is to tell you how successful our students are if they are to compare themselves through the outcome, which is indeed what we are doing is all about. Okay, so John has also taught the EMBA program himself. He came a few times in class because the type of material he teaches, which is global project management, is also where he works. So he doesn't just come to bring book knowledge to students. He comes to also bring them practical knowledge, the experience that he has compiled through a number of years. And many times the EMBA students are working people who are interested in that practical aspect. All right, so with that, I'll stop and invite John to come over, and I would like all of us to give us a round of applause. Thank
you. So good evening, Friday evening. Just a show of hands, undergraduates, please raise your hand. Hi, so I can see him. All right, graduate students. All right, one more question. Who within the next 12 to 18 months will be looking for a job? Just raise your hand. Okay, perfect, this is helpful. So I started to think about what you would want to get out of someone like myself, and I'll introduce in a second. And I put together a little lecture on project management, but it's not about the detailed Gantt chart, schedule, change control, which we'll talk about a little bit, but I want to talk about you, specifically the skill set that you're going to need to survive out there and to beat your colleague sitting next to you for the job, all right? So it'll be fun. I'll stop in between, ask you to ask me some questions, use my brain for the next 45 minutes here. Here's a big surprise, what corporate is fighting with, and I want you to keep this in the back of your head as we go throughout the entire presentation. A huge spike. 90% of the world's data has been created in the last 2 years. So think about that, what corporations are really thinking about, how to mine data. And as we think about going for a job or an application or the who you know, yeah, sure, that's somewhat important, but what are you bringing to the table from a data perspective? So I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. So here's our agenda, who we are as a firm. I run a small consulting firm. It's growing. Now I would call it small-medium. We'll give you a PM overview and then a change management overview. Then we're also going to dive into a situational leadership behaviors observed. So basically what this is going to show you is once you have the details of how to manage a project down, how do you make it to the next level, and what do companies and really senior management, what do we look for in behavior and how to drive that? And what should you be thinking about? And I put these questions here. Handling careers, salaries, and your parents for some of you. I just hired someone, and she pretty much did very well with a salary raise. She's 2 years out of school, and we took her from a competitor, and she quoted, and she talked about what her parents thought versus what she saw. So I want to talk a little bit about that when we get there. And then lastly, what if I don't know what I want to do? Oh my gosh, I have all this information, and what am I going to do if I don't know what I want to do? So we'll talk about that. So what are recruiters looking for? So a little survey, leadership and managerial skills. So we're here at school learning our managerial skills, right? The management skills off to the right, but over to the left, I want to talk about leadership skills. Leading a project is a lot different than managing a project. So we'll talk a lot about that. There's something to be said about looking inwards at a project, talking about time, cost, scope, schedule, scope creep, et cetera. But what about the human side of leading a project, as far as a borrowed resource that doesn't necessarily work for you directly? So those skills are really coming out. Here's what we're seeing. 60% are asking why. This is what we're looking for in a leadership space. You can affect change, take risks, accomplish goals. You can innovate and facilitate direction. Kind of the intangibles here. So start to think about them. Little video. See if this works. To give you a perspective of our team. Hopefully it works. Here we are. A 2-minute video.
JPW Consulting, at any one time, we can be managing dozens of projects. As a result, we have to remain flexible and agile at all times so that we can succeed on each individual client.
The commitment at JPW is greater than I've seen at any other company I've ever worked for or worked at. The people who work at JPW, they all give over 100% in everything they do, whether it's the smallest task or an entire project. It's something that I've noticed. I don't know where it comes from, but it's across the board.
The experience at JPW is overwhelming. Everybody comes from a different background, different industry, bringing all of that experience and knowledge to JPW. And with 15 years of experience in change management and training, JPW has been able to create a methodology, what we call the JPW Adoption Playbook, that absolutely brings success to every client we work with.
Our team has an intuitive sense of what needs to occur. On our team, we have deacons, lawyers, ex-bankers, teachers, and they all have one thing in common. They all want to learn.
JPW is very proactive when it comes to working with our clients. We try to anticipate our clients' needs, not only from a project standpoint, but also from an adoption standpoint and from a change management standpoint. So we go in understanding what our client is looking for and then delivering on that. All our clients have priorities that shift daily, weekly, and they really appreciate our alertness to their change when we're on site, and they appreciate our flexibility in reprioritizing with them. When it comes to results, it's very important that we as a team in JPW listen to what our client is looking for. So when we go in, we don't go in with any preconceived notions. We go in, we listen to what our client wants, and then we deliver on what they want.
Results, we quadrupled the adoption rate of the Fortune 500 company in 6 months. Who else can say that? All right, that gives you a little background. Now, has anyone taken a project management course? Okay, so when you hear the word reprioritizing, the client reprioritizes, or asks for a little bit of a different deliverable, what do you hear there as a discipline of change of project management? Do you remember? We beat it, didn't you? Scope creep. Okay, scope creep. They're asking for a little bit more, which means change order, which means more money. Okay, so think about what just happened there. We agreed to a statement of work. The client says, oh, you know what, we built this out. We built the statement of work out months ago, and we need a little bit more. The leaders that we hire, we didn't agree to that work. Scope creep, change order, let's see how it's going to affect time, cost, quality. Well, here was what's going to happen. It's either going to cost a little bit more money, or we have to push the project out. Keeping expectations aligned. I have to tell you, when you run a project, by definition, project is unique and has never been done before. That's the definition of a project. So when that happens, it's okay to go back and say, look, these are the consequences of that request. There's nothing wrong with that. So the leaders on our team that get it right away, those are the guys that elevate and we put into a leadership position, and they tend to make more. Plain and simple. They get to see that thing. Just a little background. We brought our leadership team, and we're going to come back to this picture in a little bit. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses on this particular team. And when we get into the situational stuff a little bit later, and understanding everyone's strengths and weaknesses was key for our execs to be able to say, hey, you know what? This project is a soft, fluffy project. It needs a lot of feeling involved in it. We're going to put this particular person in that. This one over here is downtown Wall Street, and it's cutthroat, and everyone's screaming, and there's going to be a lot of people fired. That same person is not going to do well in this particular project. So understanding our strengths and weaknesses, which we'll get into in a second. Here's a little background on a client list. This is where we currently are or have been in the past. A lot happening there, a lot global. I'll skip over that. Here's the technology. I just want to ground it as far as a lot of the projects that we run are in the Salesforce.com space and the Cisco space. So technology majors, anyone just in the technology space? Let's start there. Raise your hand. Okay. A few of us. Or actually management space. Let's raise your hand. All right. Okay. So when we talk about Salesforce, who's Salesforce.com in the cloud computing space, big competitor of Oracle. By the way, I told Genevieve I'd give her a plug. She has a nice presentation on an Oracle piece in the back. I want to talk about two particular projects. One was one of the largest transformational changes on Wall Street. It affected 28,000 users. We had to implement a lot of technology. We had 50 resources or consultants up in the air for an entire year, just managing the end user side of this change. Large scale, 7-year transformational change. The other one was a very rapid, high velocity change, 30 resources up in the air for 2 weeks. So two very different projects, if you think about that. So defining scope was rather easy for the quick one. Defining scope for the larger transformational one was constantly changing. So when you think about the discipline of change management, the reality in project management, the reality is you're never going to get the scope right in the very beginning. You might think you are. In theory, it sounds great, right? You're going to write a scope statement and everything's going to be fine. Never is. So big change control and from a discipline perspective. Just to give you perspective on that transformational change, obviously you can see who this was. In the middle, now, is anyone in the finance space? So 2004 to 2014, before 2008, we were dealing with just one company. In 2008, if we remember the meltdown, what happened? The bank comes in and buys Merrill, and now you have this going on. And now you have two cultures happening on top of the complexity of the technology. So guess what? If something goes wrong and a high producer does not like this technology, who's he going to scream at? It's going to scream at you as the project manager. The reality is they're going to come to you and say, why is this not ready? Why is this late? Why do my users X? I expected Y. That will happen. Your job, you have to have thick skin for this, and we'll get to the situational stuff like I had mentioned before. You're not taught this stuff at school. You're given the theory, which you need to fall back on. But the stuff, this intangible stuff, you really need to be aware. And getting prepared and being able to see that is what I look for. And I know any of my colleagues out in this world will look for as well. Again, to elevate up. So let me come down into the discipline of project management. And this is what we assume when we hire you, you have this down cold. This is exactly what we assume. Before we do, I just want to get a show of hands. I brought this slide out because I give my, when we first hire our consultants, we go through this. Our consultants are very smart, and a lot of them think they know everything, right? So I just want to start there. What I'd like to see here is these 3 A's, ability, availability, affability. How would you rank them? So let's go through this exercise for a second. Piece of paper or in your mind, what I want you to think about is you need to rank these. What's the most important thing for your project manager? Or let me rephrase it. What's the most important thing that you think you need to have first? And affability is likability, for those that are looking at that. So affability is likability. So what I want to know, you have to rank these. So is it, I need to have the ability, that's the most important thing, and then I need to be likable, and then I need to be available. So go through about 20 seconds in your mind. Think about this. So as you're the project manager, your client is looking at you. What do you think the most important thing is to that person? So raise your hand if it was ability. Raise your hand if it was ability. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a couple of these, right? Not sure. How about availability? Okay. And how about affability? Here it is. So here was a survey. You know, you're the project manager. Your job is quarterback. You do not have to be the SME on this project. It's so complex, you probably have 50 SMEs, subject matter experts. Hey, why will Salesforce, this particular field, not connect to this particular database in the back? I don't know. Let me go get my sales engineer. So this process, or looking at this from the client's eyes, they need to like you first. And that liking is not schmoozing them and kissing their ass. It's not. It's really, are you there and are you listening to them? Are you looking them in the eye and really understanding what they're about? That's affability. That's what they like. Second is availability. If they email you or call you, it's okay to email them right back. I have no clue what this answer is, but I'm going to work on it. And I'll have it to you by Monday. And guess what? On Monday, what do you think you're going to do? You're not going to have an answer because someone was on vacation. So what do? On Monday, because you told them you would get back to them, you email them again. Hey, Joe, sorry, still working on this. Give me a couple more days. The ability part is last. This was hard for me, and I kind of grew up thinking I needed to be the expert all the time. And actually, when I moved out of my own way, our business skyrocketed. I knew I could rely on my team. What's your job? Competing demands, scope, risk, time, quality, cost. For those that are interested, there is that discipline, the project management body of knowledge, or as we refer to it, the PMBOK. And that lays out your 39 processes that you follow, and it goes through your phases of a project, the initiation, planning, executing, controlling, and closing phases. That discipline is what we assume you have walking in. Now, on top of it, we're going to go into the situational stuff in a second. Have we heard about these two different disciplines here, Agile versus Waterfall? Okay, so old school was Waterfall, or still is. Let's use construction as an example. We kind of go through this Waterfall. We kind of go through the planning stage, and we plan everything out. And we have our specs, and we work towards those specs. In the software world, when software was starting to come out, especially in the cloud space, where software as a service is out there, everything can be molded into what you need, and it was very iterative. So by the time you planned out what it is you wanted in a 3-month increment, it's already changed. The business already said, you know what, I don't want that anymore. I kind of want this, and I want a little bit more. And then you started to plan that again, and then it pushed out again, and then the business came back and said, you know what, I changed my mind again. So this is where the Agile came out. It's an iterative approach. We scope, we workshop, we design, build, test, deliver, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. The expectation is we tell the business that, hey, it's going to be iterative. Everything you're asking for is not there. It'll eventually be there through a release process. And as you can probably tell, I'm a pretty process-driven person and a data-driven person. Back to that first slide, wow on the data. Work breakdown structure. So by definition, a project, you take whatever it is you're doing, we break it down into small workable packages. We cover this in our fundamentals class as far as what you need to do. 880 is your rule of thumb down to the work package level. 8 hours to 80 hours as far as work effort, a day to 2 weeks. That's what you need to manage. And now you manage the work packet, you don't necessarily manage this huge, overwhelming project. And you can assign people to manage the work package as well. We go over network diagramming, sequencing. If we are building a house, you need to pour the foundation first. Foundation needs to dry, then you can start the framing. So thinking about that through a project is key. Then you start to sequence that, and you assign resources to that, and you assign cost to that as well. We go over the critical path method. So in the case of when they ask for more money, or hey, I needed to add a little scope, we would go right to this critical path and say, well, looks like task C just doubled in time. What that just did, because we only have one resource on task C, is it's not going to finish in 11 days. It's going to finish in X days. It's just pushed everything out. By the way, notice I went in with an argument and did not say, hey, I need more money. I said, hey, this is what the project plan says. This is what we agreed to. Here's the consequence. Let's look at this plan together. So what can we do? If you're comfortable with pushing it out, that's fine. We'll just push it out. 9 times out of 10, it's pushed out. This is a big one, the risk management plan. So here's a rule of thumb for you guys, for the PMs that will eventually become in charge of budgets. So when you establish a team and you go say, how much will this cost? They're going to go and estimate. There's all different ways of estimating. You cover this in a PM course, bottom up, top down, analogous. There's all different ways. Bottom line is we're dealing with humans, right? So if someone comes to you for 100 grand and says this project's going to cost 100 grand, you as the PM should pad it by 15%. And when I say pad it, I'm not saying pad, I say break in emergency through this plan, your risk mitigation plan. So you have known unknowns and unknown unknowns. Part of that you need to quantify. So you know something is going to go wrong in the project. So if it's going to cost 100, put it 115. Don't tell the team about the 15. Let them come to you through the change control process so you can skim off that 15 because you already sold it to your boss as this 15 is extra so I can manage the issues. Once it goes above that, you know you're going back to the well and you need to ask for it. And now that's a business case. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you manage this and build it out. We talk a little bit about change control. This is huge, the change control process, managing scope. As far as if anything changes on the project, you go through a change control process. As long as you define it, you could always look something up online. There's tons of them out there. And here we go, dividing larger projects into phases. So that's PM fundamentals. Now I just want to jump out of this, looking downward into a project, and now looking outwards into people and how it's going to affect people. Because this is where we tend to pay more when the PMs get this. All right, so when we look out and how it's affecting people and the resistance that they're going to give. So side by side, the PMBOK, from a project management perspective, we go through initiating, planning, executing, controlling, closing, looking inward at a project. From a change management perspective, we follow a model called ADKAR, which is changing the human behavior side. So think about any change you've gone through, whether it was, hey, my grades aren't that well, or hey, I need to make more money, or hey, I need to lose weight, or hey, I need to quit smoking, or hey, I want to get into better shape, whatever that might be, whatever individual change that is, first you need to be aware of it, and then you need to want to make the change, the desire, and then you need the know-how or that knowledge area. And then once you see that ability, it needs to be reinforced. Well, guess what? Departments and groups, let's just use sales as an example. Regional sales groups, they're a lot like an individual. They need to be sold on the idea of this project. They will resist. So part of that is we need to think about how to fight that resistance. This is what I love, the change management status quo. Good work, but I think we need a little more work of detail right here with the miracle. I'm going to skip over a few. Some of the, again, from a data perspective, What we consult in is this space. We base it on data. We have a playbook that focuses on this. But the data tells us that active and visible sponsorship is the #1 reason projects fail. The #2 reason is not having a frequent open and communication from our leadership up here, then exco, then senior management, then management. You need communication at each level to be able to be effective. And then lastly, a structured change management plan. These are those areas. I'll skip over this. Covered. And this is an important message for you to take away. Whenever you're building a project that's going to affect multiple people, you need to think about the what's in it for me, that WIFM. What's in it for me, WIFM? What's in it for me? Why do I need to make this change? How am I going to benefit? Think about that when you're rolling whatever it is out from a project perspective. And I'll skip through a couple of, metrics. Always measuring your success on a kickoff, right? So whatever project you're running, make sure you're measuring. I'm skipping through a couple of these. I think you'll get it. I want to get to some of the juicy stuff for you guys. Here's some of the fun stuff. All right, so we talked a little bit about project management. We talked a little bit about change management. Now here's where these leaders are doing well in their careers. Their situational leadership pieces. This is the stuff that you're never taught. You come into a corporate environment, you're going to look around, and you're going to see a difference between this person and this person. You're going to look and you're going to see this person gets it, this person doesn't get it. The person that gets it, they're going to be aware of these 22 behaviors. So I just want to point them out, and I want to show you how, if you go through a process, to be aware of. So these different areas, and we bucketed them. So let me back up. I need to give them, this management research group out of Portland is a firm that we use to kind of have their consultants come in and teach our PMs as far as their own situational leadership, actually what we call plus delta, what they're good at, and quite frankly, what they're not good at, and what they want to focus on and work on. So being aware of your individual behaviors. Now, how do people observe you here at school? How do they observe you at work? So here's the areas. I just want to run them out. Are you conservative or not? Are you innovative? Are you technical? What about yourself and strategic? Now, developing followership. Here's a whole other bucket. Are you persuasive? Are you outgoing? Can you create excitement? And can you exercise restraint when need be? It's another bucket. These are all measures. How about implementing a vision? Structural, tactical communication and feedback, and then follow through your control and your feedback as well. And then you're achieving results. Your management focus, are you dominant or do you produce? And then team playing. Are you cooperative, consensual, do you have authority, and do you show empathy? Now these are 22 behaviors that can be all over the board. So what we did for our team, we went out and we did a 360 review. So basically, I would fill out a questionnaire. Let's say I'm a consultant. I fill this out, and I measure myself through a semi-ipsative questioning. It kind of forces you to answer these in a different way. You can't just say, yes, I'm awesome at this, and I'm not good at that. So I rate myself, not knowing I just rated myself. Then I have my direct report rate. Then I have my peer rate. Then I have my boss rate. So 360-degree view. And what's cool, so for example, this is me. My empathy, so let me define empathy for a second. Demonstrates an active concern for people and their needs by forming a close and supportive relationship with others. I answered these questions, I'm blue, by the way. I'm blue. I answered them, and I answered it sincerely thinking that sincerely care about people, work to develop close bonds with others, warmth and acceptance. That's what I rated myself as. My direct reports, the people that report directly to me, they were yellow. What do they think? Maintain a certain distance from others, can be somewhat aloof. So when I got this report, I'm like, holy shit, what's going on? So, and of course, my peers, they were orange. They kind of saw it. What we didn't realize, and again, situational leadership, the way I behaved with my colleagues was a lot different than I behaved with my direct reports. So this brought awareness to me. So then I have to go in through the process of, well, is this important enough for me to make a difference? Some people don't give a shit. They're like, I don't really care. They're there to produce, they need to make money, they need to make their number, keep it going. And that's good in certain areas. So I just wanted to point that out. Now you have 22 behaviors you got to work on. So this is what it looks like. And this was pretty neat. Now think about back to when I said we make our decisions in data. So depending on the client, this is the reason we did this, depending on the client we have, there are different cultures there. So we said, all right, well, this particular client needs a sensitivity to other people's feelings. So this is the profile we would look for, somebody high in the empathy dot. Obviously not me, right? So we would find somebody high in that empathy dot. And in this particular one, we all lined up based on that because I needed a picture of this. Lisa was very high on the empathy dot, all the way over to the right, and then Chris all the way over to the left. He was the horrible. And by the way, he was our quote-unquote sales guy, so he didn't care. I was like, okay, well, thanks. Capacity to get people involved, this is another bucket. Willingness to listen. Here was a big one. Turning difficult situations around. So this is a way different profile. This was this Wall Street kind of go in, the project failed. I need a rock star in there. HR, who's available on the bench? I need a rock star. Because quite frankly, they're walking into bullets. And they're going to walk in, they're going to get shot at, they're going to get yelled at, they're going to get screamed at, why, you effed this up, and this the first meeting they're going to have. So I need somebody very strong. So who did we pick? And here's an example of that. This particular person, Mary Alice on the right, was awesome at this. She was fantastic. She could grab hold of any situation. She had a high control dot, et cetera. So again, back to what's in it for you. We assume you have the knowledge, that technical knowledge on the project management. You know how to scope out a scope statement of work. You could run a network diagram. You can budget something. You know your spreadsheets, your Gantt charts, your MS project. The change management side, we could teach you that, right? You got to think about how you're going to affect the outside people. Here's where the really good stuff comes in, and are you aware of yourself? And can you change yourself when you need to? It's a big question. It's hard. All right, so let me stop here before I go into the next section, which is career, salary, parents, what if I don't know what to do? And because I just spoke a lot, and I gave you a lot of information there. So any questions up to this point on project management, change management, situational leadership? No. One? Half one or no? No. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's all about kind of figuring out what you know and what you don't know and how to go about it. So which means, to the student, you teach a class called knowledge management. You need to tell them about the knowledge quadrant, which is like you tell you all about knowing what you know you don't know, what you don't know you know, what you know you don't, what you don't know you know, and so on. So any permutation of these four rules. So to what extent is that related to this change management?
Without seeing the quadrant, I wouldn't be able to answer, but
It is what you don't know you know, what you know you know. So you can establish a gap about where you want to go from where you are, and then you can negate the other thing. So what you don't know you know, what you don't know you don't know.
okay, I see.
All of these are wrapped together.
So I would, from a PM perspective, so here's where I would want my project manager's brain to go immediately. My brain just went to risk management, which is my known unknowns and my unknown unknowns. So my known unknowns means I got a group together and we identified risks, and within risks we qualified and quantified them. So we ranked them and we said the probability of this happening is X, Y, and Z. If it happens, it's going to cost us this much. Probability is at 0.4. We weighted at 0.4 times all these others. The bucket of the numbers, 100 grand, then I put my art on it saying, I don't think it's going to be 50 grand. Then, you know what? Because this is a really big one and this client's going to change their mind all the time, we're probably going to have scope creep and we might have some arguments back and forth. That's an unknown unknown. Let's quantify that and take a guess at another $30,000, $50,000. Bucket's 100 grand. So your job is to quantify that risk. Will you ever get it right 100%? No, absolutely not. You go through and by the way, that's the one thing I never learned in school. Whenever I did my math and got to the number I thought it was right, it's never really right. You could always argue that. It's always arguable on the other side, again, as long as you back your argument with the data. All right, here's the question. Yeah. So I'll answer it in two ways. So a lot of companies are trying to, you'll hear a term out there that's a big buzz in my space that really hasn't hit the mainstream space yet. So we work a lot in Silicon Valley and we bring cloud computing to Fortune 500 companies. We're ready for the predictive analytics. We are ready to say, because of the data that you have all here that took us years to mine, we tell your inside sales guys to call on a Tuesday. When it rains on a Wednesday, you have a higher probability of closing that deal at your year-end quarter. So make all your calls that day. Predictive analytics. So from a project manager implementing that space, so that you could wear two hats. You could work for a company that's very highly skilled in that space. You get all the knowledge. You know how to do it. The challenge from a PM perspective is changing the minds in a corporate environment that people have been doing their jobs the same way for 30 years. So I think from a consulting space, it's great, right? Because you can put your models in, and that's what we get paid to do. When I talk about project management, I've been specifically talking as a consultant. As an inside person, you're gonna go nuts because you know what needs to happen, and you're gonna fight internally as far as why are they so slow? You're gonna ask that question, so you will be frustrated. It is pretty neat. A lot of the models and the algorithms that are coming out to help predict, but are they all right? No. Will there be hiccups? I'm sure. Yeah. Other questions? Yep. Yes, okay, so now it becomes the art of the billable rate. We have some rock stars that bill really high, right? And they could come in and do within a week where most PMs can take 6 months. Or it's a little bit, maybe a month to 6 months. We charge higher. So it really depends on client. So there are certain times when that person might be great, but they're already utilized, so it's a utilization play as well. So if you have 40 PMs, let's just say, and you're at 80% capacity, you have a few on the bench, the question becomes, do you switch them over and put them on a different project and use that person over here, or do you let that person go into that, or do you just say no to the job? Because, sometimes you have to say no as well because the engine's running and you don't want to take the risk for an incremental reward, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So some of the good stuff. Handling careers. Think about data. This was funny because I thought it was funny. I remember this commercial when I was a little bit younger. Let's see if we might have to sit through an advertisement. So, does anyone have an idea what this is? Don't be a dumbass. All right. So what can you get out of it? It's funny, right? I don't do any interviewing anymore. I'm horrible at it. I tend to believe everyone, and we have an HR group now. The data, bring yourself, shine yourself with data. It's not who you know. The who you know gets you to the table. They're going to vet you on your brain. They're going to vet you on what did you produce, how did you go about producing it, and when you failed, how did you handle that failure? That's what they're going to measure you on. You're going to get through an HR person interview. They're going to ask you all these theoretical questions. That's fine. But the guy behind the HR person is really going to look for those kind of qualities. I wanted to bring this up. This was the person we hired 2 years ago. She's doing a fantastic job. I asked her today, if you were to give me a quote, can I use it? And she said yes. Don't take the first job that comes your way. Don't rush. From experience, so many of my friends rushed and took their first job offer. They had outside influence. Their parents thought that the market for jobs is horrible, so I had to take this one. They had no reference when they got their first offer. All my friends who waited went through multiple job interviews and had options to choose. They ended up in better situations. I want to go to this, and we'll end it another minute or two. Let's see here. So money, salaries. And I want to tie it to the certifications. So this isn't a salary of right out of school. We can talk about that. I did ask what the numbers are, so I could share that with you as my direct shared with me. But I want to run down to one certification, the PMP, so Project Management Professional. So the fourth highest paying, and the first is not security related, PMP certification, that's $109 grand a year. It was created and administered by the PMI Institute. 630 PMPs worldwide, tests 5 areas, goes through the process. And then there's a few others here as well. Scrum Master, if you're in the software development space, a little bit less, but it gives you an idea. Now, the couple rules that you should think about, if you're very technical, work on your business skills. Quite frankly, if you're too technical, we're going to pigeonhole you and say, hey, just keep doing that work. That's awesome. Get on that sales production side, and you get to own budgets, and you get to think about compensation for you that's above and beyond your salary. So when you start to think about your career, think about becoming an expert in what you do, then start to get out of that and start to sell that expertise, whatever that might be. The number I was given here starting, which is reasonable, it was 60 plus or minus 5 in our space, which is the consulting cloud space. And within 2 years, we're paying way more than that afterwards. So I just wanted to give you that perspective. So see if I think I have my last slide. Wanted to end on time. We're a minute over. So we can say another minute or two and just answer any questions on salaries, interviews, et cetera. And when you start to think about career-wise. It's competitive out there, guys. We get a lot. So start to think about how you differentiate yourself as well. And it's not always the smartest, right? Think about the 3 A's as well. Are you there? Are you likable? Are you there, available? And then do you show that ability? Question? Yep.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to speak to your education and experience subsequently to your job experience. I wonder if you want to share that with the audience a little bit.
Yeah.
We have people who apply for EMBA.
Right.
In fact, Dan and I were having a big struggle with the student who just graduated and wanted to get the EMBA. Then it was the EMBA, the different success group. Here, so we are cohort. We work together on most of the projects, so the experience is a lot of what we do. And the students are very adamant about getting admission. So
Yeah.
in your case, I know you took some time and you went to the campus class. So can you speak to
Sure. So undergrad, I was a Rutgers boy across the street. Sorry, guys. So I was a Rutgers boy, and then I worked at an insurance carrier. By the way, one of the best pieces of advice I can give relative to education, and then I'll jump back to NJIT, was working for a larger firm that had a structured education plan for me. So I worked for this insurance company. I was analyzing contracts, and I was going back, and my job was to find risk in contracts and throw it over the fence. Just how stupid. I wanted to hang out with my guys, right? I wanted to go surfing, I wanted to go snowboarding, and Monday through Friday I'm analyzing contracts. So I didn't really enjoy that at 23 and 22. But I fall back to that discipline every day. I didn't realize it at the time, but I fall back to it every day now. So to fast forward, at a certain point, I'm getting married, having kids. I'm like, you know what, I need to further my education. So I went back, again, still working for this insurance company. I went to go I started my company. I worked for Mayor Giuliani in New York City. And I ran a huge change management project for the city of New York. And luckily, I landed Mayor Giuliani. And you ask me how? Dumb luck and the lowest bidder. I wanted to beat all these other consulting firms out, and I knew how the city worked. They're going to go. I made nothing on it. But that teed me up to get into every bank in Wall Street at that time. Then at that point, I'm growing the business is growing. I'm thinking I'm the SME, right? I mentioned it before, the 3 A's. I'm thinking I'm that expert. I come, look at MBA school, executive MBA, kids, wife, all that, trying to balance it all. Found NJIT, this is gonna work for my lifestyle. Going through the process, I met some really cool cohorts that helped. What I really loved about the program was I actually took my business and had case studies built on the business. So even though I was at school, I would take that knowledge and apply it directly to the business. And then all of a sudden, I realized I didn't need to be the smartest guy in the room, because I wasn't. And I started hiring people smarter than me. And I didn't think that way until I started going through the school. I didn't think that way. So then when I started thinking about, okay, surround myself with a lot of people that are smarter than me and enable them to do their job, that's when we did that, and it was really cool. Then I loved it so much, and now I go back and teach every once in a while when schedule allows. So that's been the journey there. One last question, do we have time? Or any others? Good. And I'll be judging some of your projects in a little bit too.
I'd like to thank John Warch for a very exciting and interesting presentation to our students. We'd now like to start the undergraduate the presentations for the Mike Spike simulation. And our Dean of the School of Management, Dr. Reggie Cordell, will welcome the audience.
He's not here.
So you're going to speak in his place?
No.
Okay.
Just want you to know about the plaque.
Well, what a great day. All these students have been working hard. I heard some screams in the hallways. So it is an exciting day. As Shanti said, my name's Reggie Cordell. I'm the new dean here for the School of Management. Last year, I spent the year as the interim dean. Before that, I was the chair of the Department of Mechanical and Industrial Engineering here at the university, and I've been here about 25 years. Came here to get involved with the research programs. I created a new research center here that dealt with multi-life cycle engineering, which means we were involved with looking at the environment and looking at design of products and the entire life cycle associated with products. All the issues that we really dealt with from a technology point of view said, hey, yeah, we can do that. We can solve that technology problem. But the real question was, okay, well, how much is it going to cost you, right? Sure, the technical solution may be there, but really, is it economically viable? And yes, you're solving a technical problem, but do you have a solution that's really the vital one that everyone is interested in? Or did you have a solution that's looking for a problem? Right. Well, this last year, the School of Management went through a process that we refer to as an academic planning process. It's strategic planning, basically. And we spent the year looking at ourselves and identifying, gosh, you know, this world is changing tremendously. And John was talking about all those changes that's taking place, where it's technology and business, and these two things used to be separate universes. But they're not. They started building bridges, and now it's no bridges, they're one and the same, right? So the technology and business, that's the future, okay? And that future is here now. So preparing students with the right skill sets to get out there and be competitive in today's business world makes us stop and look and make sure that the courses we teach, the sequences, the concentration areas, everything that we do provides an opportunity for our students to be competitive, to be differentiated, to add value, right? And to make sure that we are distinctive in what we do in order to provide that value for lifelong learning opportunities for you. Go to your undergraduate program, the MBA, the EMBA program, so always be prepared for that. But the bottom line came out that we started looking and seeing what was going on. And you know what the number one driver is in decision-making in business? It was the first slide John put up, right? It's data. Everything is data-driven, okay? So you have to be as technically alert and savvy by being a business and management major as you do as being an engineer. That's basically where things are headed. So being more on the quantitative side, being able to handle this data, huge volumes of data, growing rapidly. Gosh, 90% in the last 2 years? It's phenomenal. So how do you weed the way through that data and be able to understand what that data is really trying to tell you? Okay? John referred to it again. Predictive analytics, right? There was an ad in the newspaper not very long ago. I think it was in the New York Times. It was like a 4-page handout advertising what the company IBM is doing. And they referred to what's going on as a cognitive era. We're in a new cognitive era. It's a new era of business, of computing, and of the way that you think. The very basic idea of what business is cognitive in every aspect, data-driven, okay? Whether you are involved with inventory control or product and project management areas, you know, everything is data-driven. So that is one of the thrust areas that this school now is all about, is making sure that all of our students have that firm understanding, because it touches every aspect of business. The accounting, the finance side, the entrepreneurship, marketing, everything is data-driven, okay? So that's one of the thrust areas that we are rebuilding this school around. Another is innovation and entrepreneurship, okay? Being in a school of management inside of a university like NJIT, the connections with the business and management with STEM is absolutely critical. And it's these types of opportunities that we want to make sure that our students also have the ability to have experiences that go beyond the classroom. There are certain things that you can learn in the classroom, but there's much more to be able to learn outside the classroom as well. You can gain that experience by having internships, co-op opportunities, summer projects, working with companies. We have an incubator here on campus bringing those entrepreneurs that are down in the nitty-gritty into our classes so that you have an opportunity to experience firsthand what's going on. Okay? But also being able to look at things from a comprehensive perspective from all the different aspects of business and management and tying these things together. Okay? You cannot just focus on accounting so that you identify the cost of the product or the innovation that you're working with. You have to also understand the financing and marketing and all the other aspects. And the operational side. So operational management comes into play. And when you think about the exercise that you've been going through today with the Mike's Bikes simulation, that's pulling all these things together. okay? It's finally being able to draw from the things that you learned in your freshman year all the way up through the senior year and begin to pull that together. And it's that type of skill set that is extremely important, the ability to step across whatever your primary discipline is, to reach out to others, okay? And to be able to benefit and leverage your knowledge with their knowledge. Okay? And that's what the kinds of things that John was referring to as well. So, I just wanted to take this opportunity on behalf of all of our faculty and staff here in the School of Management, welcome you to tonight's celebration, right? Some of the groups this morning I promised wine and cheese, but we had the cheese, but I'm sorry there's no wine left. But at any rate, we have a speaker that will be providing just a few remarks here in just a couple of minutes. But I wanted to stop for just a second and recognize an individual that is the chair of our board of advisors for the School of Management. We have a fantastic board of something like 36 or 37 people who are involved across the various disciplines, and they're just very active with us. And one of the things that we're working on right now is to reach out to those companies who hire our graduates, to talk to them about what are the skill sets you're looking for. What are your expectations for new talent coming into your business? And how do our students stack up to that? What's your perception of our students? So that what we can do then is to come back and build a stronger program. Okay? So that's one aspect of what our advisory board has been doing. And the man who's been leading that board, Ray Cassetta, is an NJIT graduate in industrial engineering. As I said, I was part of the mechanical and industrial engineering, so he's one of our proud graduates from over there. But he has been just totally passionate about our School of Management for many, many years. And Ray was to speak with you this evening, as Ray has provided support, funding and support for this initiative tonight, right? So let's give a round of applause, although Ray won't be here for Ray Cassetta. And for those of you that I think Ray is here almost on a daily basis almost, except today he wasn't able to make it. But at any rate, again, I want to tell you how proud we are that you're here and the successes that you've had, and we want to leverage and to build on top of those successes and join you in that process. So I guess we have a speaker, right? Would you like to introduce our speaker? Okay, sounds good. Again, thank you very much, and we'll have a speaker, and then we'll have some dinner. All right?
Thank you so much, Reggie. I'm really pleased to see so many of our undergraduate and graduate students here, and I hope you will stay for the evening. Our keynote speaker for this evening is Dennis Salotti. Dennis is a graduate of our executive MBA program not so long ago, and he sort of graduated on top of his class. He is currently the Vice President of Operations of Evoca, and it's a technology and business consulting company that looks at pharmaceutical and biotech companies. And I think he's doing exciting work dealing with outsourcing and many other operational decisions that small biotech and large pharma companies do. So today he's going to talk to you briefly about what it is to go to the workplace and be a student getting ready for your careers. So Dennis Salotti.
So thank you for giving me the time to speak with you tonight. I really appreciate it, and I was really excited to hear that the subject matter of tonight was going to be mic spikes, and that you were all completing your work in strategic management. It's an area of focus for the Evoca group, for my, for what I focus on every day, and it really is a capstone portion of your education. It really does tie together all the different elements of business that you've learned thus far. So one of the things that I've learned, not so much in the MBA program, but in speaking in general, is that when you're between your audience and dinner, you want to stay brief. So if there's one takeaway from today's talk, it's going to be concise before the meal, and I'll try to do that. I tried really hard today to think about an analogy, just reflecting back on kind of my career and what you guys are about to embark upon, and come up with something bicycle related, but try as I may, I kept coming back to roller coasters, and I don't know if it was, I was just in Disney last week, and maybe that has something to do with it. But just to give you an idea, I've been in the workforce just under 15 years. I've had about 6 different companies I've been employed with, and I've changed positions within those companies a few times in each. So I've moved around quite a bit, all voluntarily, and for increasing positions of responsibility. I think more so perhaps than other folks you may speak to that are longer term veterans of the industry, I may reflect what your career possibilities and future is going to look like, and that I move around quite a bit. And if I think about what my career path has looked like, not so much as a straight line, but it always strikes me as somewhat of a roller coaster. Not so reflective of the job market or the economy, although I'm sure if we looked at a profile of either, it would look like a roller coaster with ups and downs. But more so kind of from the introspection that goes into riding a roller coaster. So roller coaster, what's it, it's structured of, right? You've got the tracks, you've got the coaster, and then you've got the folks that kind of ride within it. And when you first get on and it starts to kind of go up the first descent, you start to have that moment of introspection where you think to yourself, do I really want to ride this coaster? Was this a good choice that I made? Why did I have that last hot dog before getting on this? Those sorts of things. And that's probably parallels kind of what goes through when you embark upon a serious commitment, such as pursuing a business degree with NJIT. Particularly when you're in that steep ascent and you're challenged with things. Maybe you're in Dr. Silla's decision analytics class and you're saying, why the hell did I sign up for this? It's so difficult. That sort of introspective moments where things are most challenging. And then, it really does start to peak as you get to the top and you're looking out over, what you don't know will follow right below and what will happen. And, your careers are often like that. Your decisions that you make, you begin to question them, you begin to doubt them, even in the context of decision analytics, predictive analytics, the Internet of Things, machine learning, all these things that we can learn about. There's always an element of uncertainty. There's no vaccine for that, right? We'll never be free of it. And as embarking on a career in business, you're going to someday have to make those calls. You're going to have to make those decisions. And even with all the information and the tools at hand, you will encounter self-doubt. You will encounter, the question of, did I make the right decision? And that may be occurring right now as you reach your capstone course and you're looking out over the peak of what could be your future, and wondering, did I make the right decisions? Am I in a position that's going to lead me to a bright future? And I'm confident that you are. And as you close, kind of this chapter of your academic career out, and you finish your capstone projects, regardless of the outcome of whether you're the winning team or the losing team on mic spikes, I think what you're going to realize is that thrill or that rush that happens when you cross the precipice of the roller coaster and you begin that descent and you start to build positive momentum and speed. I think you're going to find that. And you need to enjoy that moment. But more importantly, you need to look at kind of what lies ahead now. So what lies ahead in a roller coaster? Once you finish the descent of one peak, you start to build into the next. And it's so critical at this juncture to keep that positive momentum, to use that speed to help build you to carry the next peak. You need to look forward to what you might want to do in that next peak, whether it be academia or pursuit of business, perhaps a career opportunity. You want to make sure you capture the speed you've built through all the positive attributes of what you've embarked upon at NJIT and bring that forward into your next opportunities. Now, does anyone really know, is that actually how a roller coaster works? Does anyone know? I'm not an engineer. I came from NJIT, but I'm not actually an engineer. Does anyone know, is it positive momentum that carries it up to the next peak? You guys just took me all on faith. It must be business students. So I actually have no idea either, but the important lesson around that, I think, is, and then what I'll leave you with before the rest of the evening is you need to be cognizant that perception is reality. So, I put it forth as an expert that that's how things work, and I think from an analogous standpoint or an allegory, that is kind of how things work. You do need to carry that positive momentum, but as you go forward, please give recognition to your personal brand, to the brand of NJIT, and to the brand of the School of Management, and really do it justice as you aspire to reach those new peaks. So thank you guys for your time tonight, and enjoy the rest of the evening.